Hi, here we are again for another Yin Yoga practice. Today's practice is all about the liver and the gallbladder meridians or lines of energy. And again, for a Yin practice, it will be slow. You'll have time to set up for each pose. I suggest using blocks or maybe a blanket for this class for some cushioning and help to ease you into each pose. A little bit to touch on the meridians before we start. The liver meridian, the location of that starts at the big toe and runs up the inside of the ankle. And then it comes along the inside of the shin, up the groin, up and around the reproductive organs until it comes to the liver and gallbladder. The gallbladder meridian actually does quite a bit of zigzagging. It'll start at the outer portion of the eye, goes to the ear, circles back to the hairline, back to the ear, back again around the forehead until it comes to about the center portion of the eye before it comes again up over the top of the head and back to the back of the head, the skull, the neck, around the shoulder, and then it runs along the ribs back to the tailbone and then along the outer side of the leg until it terminates at the fourth toe. So today's poses will be a little unique as we will have some poses that will work our side body and then of course on the inside of the legs, the inner hips and the hip flexors and the groin. So we'll go ahead and get started. We will begin by doing an ankle stretch and set ourselves up for success here. Go ahead and sit on your heels, grab some blocks, you may want them, and just this position right here could be enough for you. It can be very intense, especially if you've ever had any issues with your feet in the past. So this is just fine. If you'd like to pad your feet or your ankles, go ahead and place a blanket underneath them, and that'll feel quite nice and give yourself a little bit more cushioning as we hold this pose for about 3 to 5 minutes. If you are able to take the pose deeper, you may want to lean back and add more pressure into the tops of the feet. And if you feel like challenging yourself and you feel that you can hold your stillness, you can take your hands to the tops of the legs and really work those muscles in the tops of the feet. Find your edge, find what works for you today, and then embrace the stillness as we hold here for a couple of minutes. Today we will work on opening up these pathways, currently working on the liver pathway, which runs along the top of the foot. It's important to remember the connection in Chinese medicine isn't directly with the organ itself. It's not limited to just the liver. It's the pathway of the liver meridian and opening up the flow of blood, the flow of energy. The liver is responsible for our emotional flow that we have in our day-to-day. You find yourself stuck in a rut, always overwhelmed with the same feelings. You may find that you're struggling to open this pathway along the liver meridian. And some of these poses could be very challenging for you, as this is where you need to work the most. Taking nice steady breaths here as you hold in the pose. And to come out, slowly lower yourself down and forward. You can come to all fours. And we're just going to tap the tops of the feet to the mat, releasing that energy that we've created. You can feel everything flow back into the feet and the ankles. Okay, from here, we're going to go around to our backs and try our Banan Asana pose, which I have the hardest time saying that. Bananasana, maybe? That's right. Anyways, we're going to make like a banana. So go ahead and lie down like you're lying down for Shavasana. And from here, we're going to take our legs and shift them both over to the right. So feet are both to the lower or the top right corner of your mat. And then your hands will go up overhead and you shift your upper body to the right. And you can take your left wrist in your right hand. And then also maybe you want to shift your right ankle over your left ankle to really anchor down that left side of the body. If you feel any tingling or strange sensations in the upper body, in the upper arm or shoulder, adjust your position of the arms. Really working on opening up our side body along the ribs here. And that's where our gallbladder meridian lies. The vitality of the gallbladder meridian is directly affected by the life and function of our liver meridian. The gallbladder meridian specifically has its duty to clear out the toxins in our body. Toxins created from metabolizing clearing out those toxins will help reduce our muscle fatigue, aches, pains. Feel how this pose has the benefits to relax, but also to renew that energy to renew the muscles in the body. To come out of this pose, we will just transition back to a neutral space. Release the left hand. Bring the arms down back alongside the body. Shift the legs back over to center until you're aligned into what would be a Shavasana pose. And we'll just take a couple of breaths here to integrate the effects. And those positive feelings that we gained along the left side body. Breath is steady here. So we think about the sensations that we feel as we go into these poses and we hold them. Before we start the pose on the other side, think about whether you're experiencing warmth, even a coolness along the side body. Is it a gentle stretch? Are you tensing? Let's go ahead and transition to Banan Asana on the left side. Go ahead and shift the left foot and the right foot to the left-hand side of the mat. The center of the body stays about the same as we bring the arms over the head. Take the right arm and the right wrist in the left hand, and then shift the upper part of the body over to the left. And we'll hold here, breathing deeply as we open up the right side body. Again, hold and relax. allow those muscles to let go. And the longer we hold, the longer we give them that time that they need to drop down and release. The right side of the body stays anchored and heavy. You can take your left ankle and cross it over the right. Feel each breath expanding the right side body. Imagining that pathway of energy opening. Traveling down the side of the body to the outside of the right leg. All the way to the fourth toe. From here we will start to release the pose. Go ahead and let go of the right wrist. Shift the body back into center line. Lower the arms back along the sides and go ahead and separate the legs as we take just a few breaths here in Shavasana. And let the legs and the feet relax out. Dropping in deeply here and noticing the difference in our right side body. allowing the breath to continue to flow. We want to keep breathing through these poses. If you hold your breath, you'll find that you will start to tense. Go ahead, and if your eyes are closed, go ahead and start to open them. And from here, go ahead and draw the feet to the mat, and we will go ahead and roll onto our side and bring ourselves up to a tabletop position. And from tabletop, we'll come into just a really quick downward dog. It's more of a transitional pose here. And give us the opportunity to bring the right foot and place it towards the top of the mat in between both of the hands. And from here, we want to bring the left knee out, extend it out behind you. If you do have pain into your knee joint, please either double your mat over and cushion it, or go ahead and use a blanket. I'm going to use a blanket to cushion my knee for this pose. We don't want to be directly on top of the knee, but at the very top of, or I should say the very bottom of the thigh. So we're resting right in that small area. You may find it easier to keep your toes tucked in the back, or just to let the top of the foot lie along the mat. Get yourself adjusted here. And if you cannot reach the mat, your other option will be to take blocks and have your hands resting on the blocks. We don't want to collapse in the front of the body. We don't want all of our weight and our chest to be resting on the right thigh. You want to have space there. So if you do need the blocks, go ahead and adjust the height on the middle, on the bottom height, whatever you need, so that we can keep the chest shining forward and open. And here we will hold dragon pose for a few minutes, breathing deeply into the stretch along the hip flexors, into the groin. Sending your breath down into that area to help ease the tension that you may feel. And this will definitely work on increasing your hip mobility. Another option I like to take instead of coming to my fingers for these poses, because I find holding that for several minutes can be difficult for me, as I'll just come to my knuckles, and that provides a little bit more strength. Giving our joints and the fascia a little love today in these very, very deep stretch. Allowing the tissues to deepen. If you find that you are tending to tense in this stretch, find your version of the pose that will work best. Again, I really love the use of props and making this accessible to you, so you can enjoy all of the benefits of each pose. Allowing our body, allowing our muscles to release in this pose is a perfect way to surrender, to give yourself a chance to deepen physically, emotionally, and spiritually as we move through all of these yin poses. And before we transition out of this pose completely, we're going to move into our twisted dragon. And so from here, you may want to move the right foot just a little bit out to the right, just a couple of inches. And then we'll come into the knife edge of that right foot. Your right hand will come into the inside of the right thigh as you twist along the upper body. And just gently push that right leg out so that the knee drops to the side. Opening into that right hip even further. And along the left hip flexor. The left leg stays long and it should be straight out behind you and not at an angle. Feel the body energize as you hold here. And the strength that you have in your stillness. We come out of this pose very slowly. Bring the right knee back to center. Hands come back to the mat. And go ahead and take the right foot back behind you. I'm just going to move my blanket out of the way for a moment. And from here, shift the left leg back so it's straight. Toes are on the mat. And we'll just rock into that back foot, back and forth a few times, allowing the energy to release alongside the left side of the leg. Very nice. And from here, we'll again transition into down dog, using it just as a transitional pose. And we'll make our way into our dragon pose on the left hand side. Left foot comes up towards the top of the mat, centers in between the hands. Go ahead and keep the knee stacked over the front ankle, and the right knee starts to extend out long. Again, you can tuck the right toes if that feels more comfortable for you. I'm going to use a blanket to cushion my knee since we hold this pose for a while. Get it back there. Very good. Again, grab your blocks if you would like. And we'll make our way into dragon pose on the right side. Remember, avoid collapsing into the chest and keep your chest open. And keep the weight off of that left thigh if you can. Take your time here in these poses. Dragon pose can be quite difficult. Find your stillness and your focus. Breathing deeply. Feel that length in the right leg as it draws away from you. I know you can be different on each side. You may need props on one side and nothing on the other. And that is perfectly fine. Your practice is all about you. You turn it into what you need for today. And before we fully come out of dragon, we will take our twisted dragon. So go ahead and move that left foot out maybe 2 inches or so. And we come onto the knife edge of the left foot as we take our left hand and place it on the inside of our left thigh. Again, the right leg stays out nice and long. And we drop deeply into the hips. You can relax that left foot as we hold here for a few minutes. Nice twisting stretch. If you find your inner mind start to wander, focusing again, returning to your breath. Breathing steady and gentle. Remember, as any of these poses get difficult, just remind yourself to smile. It's a perfect distraction. Okay, as we release, come out of this pose very slowly. Turn back onto the sole of the foot. You can lower the hands down and bring your foot back behind you. I'm going to lose the blanket. And from here, go ahead and stretch that right leg out long. Press into the back right heel, and we'll just rock back and forth a handful of times here. And from here, again, we'll transition once more into our downward dog. Pause here just for a moment. As we lift the kneecaps up and drive the thighs backwards. A short little stretch here. Our next pose will transition to Swan Pose on the right side. Go ahead and bring the right knee up and behind the right wrist. Right ankle's behind the left wrist. And from here, you can set yourself up again with some props. Adjust the angle of the front right leg so that you aren't feeling any sharpness or pulling in the right knee. And if you need to, also, I will be using props in this pose, and you can set a folded blanket or a block underneath the right hip so that you can retain an evenness in both of the hips. From here, the left leg stays out long. And then you can start to lean forward. And maybe you just stay high up like this. You can also lean back and just be directly shoulders above the hips. But if you would like to lean forward in the pose, walk yourself forward and then come onto your elbows. Head can also rest on the ground. If you're doing this sequence early in the day, you may be a little less open and may enjoy using a little bit more props. Again, finding your edge in this pose. It will be different for everyone. Once you find that edge, we come to stillness. Restlessness is totally normal in these poses. And that's where our props come in. They help take away that want to fidget, to constantly correct ourselves in the pose. As you do these poses, you may feel certain emotions come up. Emotions related to the liver meridian tend to cling. They tend to stick with us, leaving us in a rut. Trying to find our way to change when everything constantly seems to be making us feel the same way. So as you sit here and hold these poses, notice what comes up for you. Breathe in the change. Breathe out any emotional stagnancy that you're feeling. We'll start to release ourselves from this pose. Push up firmly into the mat with your hands to walk yourself upright if you're not already there. Go ahead and remove your block if you're using one. And from here, we'll come into all fours and then push ourselves into a downward dog. Maybe shifting those hips right and left. And go ahead and come to a stillness in your downward dog. Take one inhale and one nice deep exhale out the mouth. And we'll move into our Swan Pose on the left side. Go ahead and take the left knee up and behind the left wrist. Left ankle goes behind the right hand. Placing a block underneath the left hip and adjusting that angle on the left knee to what will suit you. Once you feel that you're even within the hips and you have yourself set up, you can either stay upright or you can fold forward and come onto your elbows, maybe even taking the head all the way to the floor if you'd like it. It'll always take a few wiggles at first to get yourself situated. From there, you'll find your stillness, your path to release. Opening up deeply into the hips and into the groin here. Clearing out those physical and emotional toxins as we hold these poses. Yin yoga is so incredible for improvements in your flexibility. But the mental and emotional benefits you get from it are just such a happy side effect, if that's maybe not the most appropriate word I want to use. The gallbladder is the yang to the liver's yin. And in this pose, we get to work along both of those pathways. We embrace those sensations, the coolness, as we hold for this length of time. And then on our release, the warmth of the energy and the fluids rushing back into the joint. Nourishing the surrounding tissues and the fascia, helping the body to repair and to renew. Go ahead and start to release from this pose, pushing firmly into the mat with both of your hands and walking yourselves back. Lifting up and removing our block. And go ahead and come back into a downward dog. Again, shifting those hips over to the left and then maybe over to the right a couple of times. And then go ahead and lower onto all fours. Just for a few moments, we're going to take frog pose. It's a very intense stretch for anyone. And I'm going to do it on the side of the mat. I like to make sure that both of my knees are provided with cushion along the mat. Go ahead and bring your hands in front of you and start to widen the knees out as far as you can tolerate. It does not have to be very far. And then walk the feet in so that the ankle and the knee are in line. And from here, you can go ahead and lower onto the forearms, or even place the head onto the back of the hands. And we'll rest here. You'll have more of an intense stretch if you push back with the hips. It's not needed in this pose, but if you feel like you're able to, feel free to try. The inner thigh and the groin. Feeling this very deeply. We'll keep this pose short and sweet. The trick to this pose is coming out of it safely. So you need to actually bend the feet in and bring the feet back into center line. Push up into your forearms and into your hands. And from here, slowly bring one knee in, just a small amount, and then walk the other knee in until you keep bringing them into center line and return back to a seat. We'll close out our yin yoga practice today with a recline butterfly pose. So go ahead and lower yourself onto your back. Soles of the feet together. You can let your knees drop open to the side. If you'd like a cushion or a block underneath each knee for support, that is up to you. Take this time to set yourself up. And your hands can just rest on your belly, Or if you'd like, you can take both of your hands and let them rest on top of your liver. From here, just gentle breaths. Imagining your energy traveling down to your liver. In Chinese medicine, there are natural elements that correspond with each of the meridians. And with the liver and gallbladder meridians, the element that relates to them is wood. And the nature of wood is that in nature it is always driving forward, renewing. It's a force that continues to grow. It pushes back against nature. And yet, in the storm, it's able to bend and to move. Maybe using this vision as yourself in the forest. You are the tree standing strong. Picture yourself as being strong and making decisions, moving forward with a perfect vision of your plans for yourself. From here, go ahead and release the legs out long. And we'll end our class in Shavasana, taking up space on the mat. Hands open up, palms up to the sky. Feet drop out to the sides. As we take our last few closing breaths here. invite you to continue to keep your eyes closed and rest in Shavasana as long as you would like. If you're ready to come out, go ahead and draw the knees in. Maybe give them a little hug. And we'll roll onto our side and come up to a nice seated position. Thank you for joining me again today in this Yin Yoga class. I am so thankful for this space to practice in and for this body with which to practice, and also for you to practice with me. Thank you.